All right, guys, so we're gonna take a look at Matt's bod pod results. We sent him in to get his body composition tested in the bod pod machine. It's used in scientific research. It's probably the best thing we have besides a DEXA scan. For what we need, it's good enough. So with Matt, his first weigh-in was 260 pounds, that's his body weight, at 39.3% body fat. So that means 39.3% of this weight on his body is fat. Fat-free mass, so that's bone, connective tissue, water, tendons, ligaments, anything that's not fat, that's fat-free mass. So 60.7 is the percent of fat-free mass. And then we broke it down by pounds and not just percentages as well. So 102 pounds of fat, 158 pounds of fat-free mass. And then the bod pod also, it does an estimate of his resting metabolic rate, which for him came out at 2,036 calories per day. So this is the amount of energy Matt would burn if he's just lying in bed all day, sitting in a chair, basically. It's the energy your body needs to carry out basic daily functions, breathing, digestion, sleeping, things like that. And for the purpose of this discussion, I'm just gonna round this to 2,000 calories. This is based on equations, other formulas anyway, coming out of the bod pod. So we're just gonna round it to 2,000 to make the math in this discussion a little bit easier. So the way I'm gonna have Matt approach his nutrition is by tracking his calorie intake. I'm not gonna give him a full out meal plan and tell him to eat this, eat that. I'm gonna give him some guidelines that he can work within to hit his goals. So we're gonna take his resting metabolic rate of 2,000 calories, and from that, we're gonna try to get an estimate of his daily energy expenditure. It's also called TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. And this is going to be an estimate of how many calories he burns per day, in addition, to what he might be burning here with his resting metabolic rate. If we take his 2,000 calories from his BMR, and then we're gonna say Matt's moderately active because he's gonna be strength training 3 days a week, and he's also gonna be doing some walking, some biking, not technically because I'm assigning him that, like he has to do it, but those are things he enjoys anyway. So he is, I would say, consider him moderately active. So if we take this 2,000 calories and we do a multiplier of 1.5, that's an activity multiplier, just from Tom Venuto's book. I also saw similar numbers in Aragon's book, and both of these we'll link to in the video below. So 2,000 times 1.5 equals 3,000 calories per day. So that is an estimate of his daily energy expenditure, including his physical activity, walking to work, going on a bike ride. Some days it might be strength training and it might be a little higher. We want to create a calorie deficit for him to lose body fat. So I'm going to start him with probably around a 20% deficit. So if we take 3,000 and we want to get 20% of 3,000, will be 600 calories. So I'm going to subtract the 600 from the 3,000 and have him shoot for 2,400 calories per day. And that might seem like a decent amount of food to the average person, but for Matt, and because of his body mass and his BMR, this is going to be an okay deficit for him to start with. Because if you look at it, 600 times 7 days per week, that's really about 4,200 calories a week. Like that's his weekly deficit if he sticks to the plan perfectly, which is, that doesn't happen. But again, it's all just approximations. All right, so we're gonna take his 2,400 calories per day that we're gonna start him at, and we're gonna figure out how much protein, how much carbohydrate, and how much fat we wanna eat per day. So the first thing we're gonna figure out is protein. We're gonna go with a gram per pound of target body weight. I know a gram per pound of body weight is a popular recommendation, but for someone who carries this much body fat, he does not need to be eating 260 grams of protein a day. That's too much, that's plenty. So I know for sure, and the reason I'm gonna say 190 pounds, we know that for a guy who's 5'9", for him to be at a healthy weight, he's probably gonna be below 200 pounds. We're just gonna call it 190 pounds for now. 5 months down the road, maybe 175 or 180 is a better goal for him, but let's start with 190. Protein, equals 1 gram per pound of target body weight. And by the way, I'm basing these numbers off of some recommendations in a book. It's called The Lean Muscle Diet by Schuler and Aragon, and we'll link to that book in the description. So protein, that's gonna be 190 grams per day, and 190 times 4, just gonna make sure we got that right. 190 times 4, because there's 4 calories per gram in protein. That's gonna be 760 of his daily calories. 4 calories per gram in protein. You wanna remember that. Protein and carbs, 4 calories per gram. Next, we'll go fat, figure out his fat intake. And from what I've heard from Matt, like just talking to him and like learning about kind of his food preferences, at least in the past, I'm gonna set his fat intake a little bit on the higher side. So 0.4 to 0.7 grams per pound of target body weight. So Matt prefers a little bit higher fattier foods. I'm gonna go with 0.6. So if we take 190 times 0.6, see what we get. $114 grams per fat. And that seems a little bit on the higher end, but again, this is just a starting point. So we'll see how he does with this. If he likes the high fat, or if he starts to prefer lower fat, then we can always change it. Nothing's set in stone. We want to figure out how many calories this is. And fat, the thing about fat is fat has 9 calories per gram, which means fat is more calorie dense. This is one of the reasons like eating out can be so like detrimental to one's diet, because a lot of places, a lot of restaurants, you're getting extra fat, butter, oils, fried food, and the fat grams can add up really quick. So this 114 grams of fat, if you multiply it by 9, because there's 9 calories per gram, we got 1,026. Okay, so then what we have left is carbohydrate, which is just gonna be a filler. So whatever calories we have left, we'll throw into the carbs. So if we take 2,400 calories and we subtract 760 calories from protein, and then we subtract 1,026 calories, which is gonna come from fat, that leaves us with 614 calories for carbs. Since carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, we'll just divide this by 4 to get the grams of carbohydrate per day. So 614 divided by 4, I'm gonna round it up, it's 154 grams carbs. Okay, so those are Matt's macros to start with. We're gonna go with 190 grams of protein to 114 grams of fat, 154 grams of carbs. So what we're learning is that for fat loss, the ratio of fat and carbs isn't as important as long as the protein and calories, the total calories, are where we need them to be. I don't really care if Matt's eating 90 grams of fat and more carbs and 190 grams of carbohydrate, or if he likes high fat and low carb. I'm not worried about that. This is based more on personal preference. Again, we're not stepping on a bodybuilding stage here. We're just trying to get in good shape. So maybe at the elite level, you're gonna play with these things, but a lot of it is just learning his preferences and what he likes. Maybe we learn that when he adds in lifting, he feels better on a higher carb diet, in which case we could bump this up and drop the fats down and still keep the calories the same. So we'll start with this, get him rolling on this plan. He's tracking his food intake every day on the app on his phone, and we'll see what happens these first few weeks.